Hi, I'm Jessica Hallenbeck, and I'm here with my friend Shelly Panzarella, and we are going to talk today about goal setting and how we can relate that to our lives, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we can put that towards home buying and preparing. However, we're going to start with market updates and a little bit of mortgage talk first.
Still hot.
Still hot.
Yeah.
But there's been the last 3 months, it's actually slowed down in the number of sales just slightly. And there is a little bit of an increase, so I'll just give the numbers. So the number of units sold in May's numbers is 3189, so 31,089 homes sold. Okay, so that is actually a decrease of 9.6% from April.
Wow.
So 10% is kind of noticeable. However, the number of new listings was at 3731, and so that was an actual increase of 0.9%. So literally 1% increase. So,
0.9.
Yeah, so 0.9%, so like 1%. When we compare that to a year ago, of course, the numbers are like, ooh, that big. But it is slowly showing some trends that we are increasing the inventory ever so lightly.
Yeah.
So little. But just a little bit, every little bit counts. If we can have just this tiny amount every month, it will help.
And the sales were down. What do you think you're saying the sales were down a little bit?
Well, I think what happened is March was like this skyrocket month where we had this just huge number of sales, and it just can't sustain. I mean, really. So I think we're very normal numbers. These numbers are not abnormal. What's happening is we're just selling more homes than we ever did before. So our absorption rate is really high. So we just can't get more homes in the inventory queue to really get us past this crunch. So when buyers go out and shop, they're feeling like they don't have a lot to choose from.
Yeah. But that would be a good indicator, because we are seeing a little bit more trend, you're saying, up in our listings, right? So maybe we'll start to see a little bit of evening out on that.
Yes, I do think we're going to see, it's the months where people do start selling their homes in the summer. So I think we're going to see a few more of those. So I'm going to say I'm optimistic, but it's going to take a little while. Investors are still heavily buying and purchasing homes. All these hedge funds that are purchasing, those homes are never going to come back on the market. I mean, in the reality of things, they are bought investments for a long haul.
Yeah.
So the numbers, really, we can't have that to factor in.
Yeah. Well, speaking of investors, so we actually have a new program that's out there that speaks directly for investors who are not necessarily paying cash. I know when you're talking about our hedge funds, they're coming in literally paying cash for the home, and they're going to end up renting it. And so we actually have a new program which is unique, but it reminds me a little bit of what it looked like back in 2004 or 5, because it's very similar to like a stated income program, or it's like a stated income based off of whatever the rents would be, but it affords people an opportunity to get in, because most of your investors are maybe business owners who have tax returns and little different unique ways of filing their returns, right, may not be able to see a ton of income for us to qualify them for. And so they have this new stated program which ultimately uses just the rental income. Depending upon how much of the income is there determines how much they have to put down. It's a minimum of 25% down, but it allows an investor to come in. And so we've seen actually a lot of investors utilize that.
So I'm going to dig around that for just a second. So at 25% down payment, that's taking a lot of risk away from the lender.
Correct.
Financial institution.
Yeah.
So this is really, even though it's stated, it's not necessarily risky.
Right.
Because they've put such a large chunk of money into the property.
Correct.
And then the second thing I was listening to there is they're going to take the proposed average rent for a property like that and use that to offset. So like if their debt to income ratio won't support that new debt, they can take that income to balance that out. Is that where?
That's correct. Yeah, the difference from when, pre-housing crisis, right? So pre-2008, we were doing like 80/20s or 100% financing, even for our investors. And so here, you're right, it's truly on the property now. They know that from a lender standpoint, a borrower is investing in this home as well. There's a lot of capital going into the home, and it's a lower risk for the lender. In addition to that, they know that even if something should happen to the buyer themselves, right, they're not going to live in the property, they're going to rent it out. The rental market can absorb any, if they couldn't sell it, or if they had to actually rent the home out, they're covered from a lender standpoint. So I think it's really unique from that aspect, but everybody here is like, it's really like a stated type of program, right? Yes. Stated off of the rental income.
That word kind of has this negative
stigma. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
But I think though, like, you're 100% right on that, because even realtors struggle to necessarily buy real estate sometimes in this industry. Yeah. And a lot of it is because they have their write-offs and they don't show the income in different ways, or, just whatever reason. And yet, but if you have 25% down payment, that's pretty solid.
And I think it's exciting because, from a lending standpoint, it's just showing that there's more comfort in our industry, right? Where, pre-COVID or during COVID, a lot of programs went away. And so to come out with this type of program, in the beginning I was kind of like, oh my goodness, we're going backwards. But the reality of it is backwards then was completely different than what it is today, even on this type of financing. So I think it's encouraging to know that different programs are starting to come out there to give access to our buyers to purchase.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to segue into goals.
Yeah.
But taking that concept really quick, I would like to buy another investment property, and the only way to look at that before you told me about this program was to look for one that already had a lease in place so that I could use that income to offset it.
Yeah.
So this opens up some investing opportunities for people that have been thinking about doing it.
Yeah.
So I know who I'm going to reach out to.
Yes, awesome. Well, and even speaking towards that, so we went on vacation, just came back from vacation. So we rented a condo, and inside of the condo there's a little welcome thing, and it talks a little bit about what the average rents are for that condo, what it looks like for the year. And so, me being who I am, I kind of contacted a realtor and said, hey, how much does it cost to buy this home? And then saw what the mortgage was and realized that the rents on the property well exceeded the amount of the mortgage. And so, I was like, this could actually be a great rental property. Plus, when we want to go away, we have a condo that we don't have to pay for. Technically, if it covers itself. So thinking of it from that standpoint, it's a long-term, definitely long-term, but retirement and investment for us, for our family. So,
so
goal setting.
This is the perfect time for goal setting. So why we decided to make this the topic today was because both Shelly and I are really big into this. Goal setting has been like a real big part of my life, and I know Shelly's life. And we're about halfway through the year, and it's time to reevaluate. So I always do this every quarter, and then you do it. Mm-hmm. And so what are the main reasons? By the way, how did you get into goal setting?
So I've done coaching. I started coaching probably about 10 years ago, and the one thing that she set for me, so we had an introduction, it lasted about 2 hours. You kind of go through like what your life looks like, and one of the things that I was not balanced in was my family life. I'm a workaholic, and my husband and my daughter know that, and one of the areas that I felt I needed to improve on was my family life, and one of the ways that we could do that was vacation. So for vacation for me, it's literally letting go of work and whatever. And so when I first started, my coach had said, before we even move forward, what I need you to do is to commit to 2 vacations and book them. Yes. Like before we move forward. I was like, wow, that's cool. And so, for my daughter was really little at the time, and so for my husband, he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, we had to plan, 2 vacations. And so we did. And, the planning of it was exciting for us. The, paying for it, obviously you have to work to get to that level, but then there's that feeling of like, I set this goal, right? And we achieved it, but then when we got there and we were able to have our vacation, it was such a good time, and you could feel that helped me out for the whole year to balance. balance, right? To reset. And then as I've gotten older, I've used that time not only to just spend time with family, but to also do this resetting of my goals across all areas of my life. So I'm a huge goal setter. I know you are as well.
I know. I'm thinking, I just went on vacation too, and it was definitely one of those moments where, of course, I let go.
Yeah.
But I picked times to do my self-reflection, and to me, that's like, I actually enjoy that. So it's, even though it's very quiet. It's very something that I do personally. I don't need to tell anybody or talk about it or bounce. I'm take my goal setting book. I have a little booklet I use, or my journal, and I just like write down things. You know, and then I'll take and look at my goals. And the nicest part about that is that you actually can see your progress when you do it year over year. Yeah. And I could definitely see that. So it makes you stretch, it makes you push yourself, it gives you something to look forward to, especially putting the vacations in your goals, or buying a house in your goal. Or,
absolutely.
If you write it down, it is so much more likely to happen.
Yeah, well, and you have record of it too. I think of it from a standpoint of like playing a game even, right? If you don't know what the score is, or you don't know who's winning, right, and in your life, whatever, you're trying to see if you're achieving something, how do you know where you were at? Right, unless you're keeping kind of eye on the ball, so to speak, and truly, like you said, when you write things down, it's amazing how some of this stuff just comes to fruition. Well,
there's reasons for it. One, when you write it, you put it in your subconscious.
Yeah.
So you become aware of opportunities that you might not have been able to see in your life, or you were distracted, but you've made this a reality of something. And they say that you would visualize what you're going to achieve before you ever achieve it.
It's true. Very true.
And so if you're writing those things down, usually I actually purposefully do the visualization of, I try to see myself walking down the beach with my kids, and I pictured their wedding days. So whenever I'm writing my goals, I tend to make the visualization of what it is I'm looking to happen.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think sometimes the goals are too big, but no, they're not.
Yeah.
They're really not, because once you start to get a few of them, you're like, oh, I could do this, and you check a few off the list, and it feels really good.
Even momentum on that too, right? As you start to write a goal out, and then you start to see, like weight loss, right? For a lot of people do the New Year's resolutions in the very, beginning of the year, and they always say like February is the greatest fallout for gyms and things like that. But when you start to do this program, or working out, or eating right, or whatever, and you start to see, you get on the scale and you're like a couple pounds, and then 5 pounds and 10 pounds, or you start to see muscles and your pants fit better. There's that excitement about you're working towards something, right? But maybe if you didn't have that goal of wanting to go on vacation, have a specific weight gain goal, or whatever the case is, you wouldn't be able to see what that progress really is.
Speaking of that, there's like 5 categories I focus on.
Yeah.
Business, financial, personal, spiritual, and then health, however you want. So health has always been my last one. Although I do things to try to stay healthy in general, but I recently just were like, I have to put first things first. And really your health is a first thing first kind of thing, because you could end up 10 years down the road and not enjoy because it hurts, or because you've put on that extra weight, your knees hurt, right? And so you kind of have to get realistic. So I just had a big birthday, and
happy birthday.
Thank you. I thought, I really need to make that a priority. It's not like I'm huge or anything like that. And it's not about that. It's about being healthy. It's about knowing I want to live a long life and enjoy it. Yeah. So I've added that to part of my routine now, where I've been out at 5 o'clock the last few mornings.
That's awesome.
So yes.
But it's the momentum thing, right? So it's probably hard the first day, and it'll probably hard the second day, but it'll start to be something where your body just gets accustomed to waking up that early.
I really think that when you make a commitment and you say to yourself, you're going to make 100% commitment to something, and you have it in your heart, you'll do it.
I agree.
I would listen to myself about like trying to set the exercise goal for a while, but I don't really mean it.
Yeah.
Like it was the bottom of my list.
Yeah.
So until you really internalize it and believe it, and that's why you go back to your goals and read them again every once in a while and reflect on them.
Yeah.
For those exact reasons.
Yeah, and I think it's different, goal setting, like vision boards. A lot of people do vision boards, and I think that's one aspect of it. But I think the difference when you are truly doing the goal setting and you're, like you do, your quarterly reviews and your reflections, it takes that aspect of the goal and really puts it into timeline for you to achieve. You know what I mean? I think every year everybody puts that vision board, and it's all these wonderful things that you want to accomplish and these beautiful pictures that you want to have in your life you want it to look like. But then when you really write it down and you write down the timeline on what it would look like, and then you start to keep metric of what you're doing and when you're doing it, you'll see that goal gets closer and closer and closer to actually becoming a reality.
100%. When you take the goals, so in goal setting, you start with the biggest things. You start with your why. You really dig into how I want to see my life one day. Like, so many people walk around and they just are going to land somewhere. They have no idea what's really going on. Yes, I'm going to have a job, but and I'm going to have a pension or retirement, but okay, but is that really what you want? You can do things and plan, for whatever. If you want to have a house on the beach one day, well, write it down.
Yeah.
Then, but why? Why is that so important? Because I have a family and I want to be able to provide for them, and I want to make sure that, there's a financial fortress built around them, so that whenever, if anything ever happened to me or my husband or just in general, that we're okay. There's a reason why you do it, right?
Yeah.
But it's, and then helping people and all the things that you do. But I also realize the same thing as you, that it's not about just that kind of thing. It's really time. Your goals of time. How do you spend your time?
Yeah.
Like spending it with my family, making sure that I turn my phone off. On vacation, I actually forwarded my calls.
That's
to
awesome.
Someone else. I did not take I returned a couple, but I really disconnected so that I can be in the moment. I try to be in the moment as much as possible. Yeah. Because I just think that's really important. And what you put in, by the way, is what you're going to get out. Yeah. So if you're putting in good stuff, you're going to usually.
Well, and I think we're like top producers, you run at a high level just because of business. You've got 2 little beautiful daughters, husband, right? And so I think some of that is, even like cars, they need tune-ups, right? They have a monthly or they have a quarterly oil change, because if you don't change your oil, the car's gonna, break down or whatever the case would be. But I think from our body standpoint and our life standpoint, that those times, quarterly, you say it's a review, but it's also an opportunity for you to kind of reflect, and it lets your body really unwind, and then it gives you more energy to be a really great business owner, really great mom, really great wife, that you avoid a burnout, you know what I mean?
Yes, taking the breaks, and that includes a day off.
Yeah.
Too. Most people know me, I really try to take Sunday off, and it's kind of hard in the real estate world for some people, but I've made it work.
Yeah, that's great.
Is there an exception? Of course. But I just know that if you don't turn it off just a little bit, and it depends on your personality, but it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're a stay-home mom, you need to have some personal time.
Yeah,
occasionally.
for sure.
You have to do that for yourself. If you're, working in, something else other than what we do, regardless, the same principles apply for anyone.
Yeah, completely. And it's really it's all inclusive for, well-being, right? Mm-hmm. Truly, it's the well-being aspect. But, and I was trying to talk through the goal setting for buying a home. I think we run into a lot of buyers who, this is their first home, and getting them to this step, understanding even the buyers who are just considering it, not even those that have already made a commitment, right? And what that even would look like for our our borrowers who are like really kind of just beginning to think about owning a home. But as you were mentioning, like why you want to own a home, and now they're starting to see this. Like I had a client that we closed recently, and he was recently married. They just had a baby, and he's like, I felt like, you know, I didn't want my child to be raised in an apartment, you know, and he's like, it was one of the next things for me to just automatically go out and set for buying a home for my family, you know, and then he sought out a realtor, and you know, they kind of put him in the next steps. It took them a year, but he had the goal, you know. They had to get pre-qualified in the very beginning, and just that process.
I don't think anything happens fast.
No.
It just doesn't.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even happen quick in my world. Like when I make a decision
Yeah.
to look for a new home, there's a seed that gets planted in my mind.
Yeah.
Usually I've been at this point and decided that, oh, well, the next, you know, there's usually a reason for it. Like, you know, I would personally love to have a home with a pool. We don't have a pool. I think it would be a great entertainment opportunity. My kids love to swim and have people over, and it would work really well with my life. And but it's really hard to do that. So like that's in my goals. How is that going to happen? I don't know. Maybe it's another house.
Yeah.
Maybe we do one. Maybe we don't. Maybe there's other things. I'm not really pushing it. And it's not something that has to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it might, because I'm working on it. Like,
Yeah.
sorta,
And you've written it down.
Yes, I did write it down.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we're adding a new team member to our team, and I wrote that down like literally 2 years ago that I would grow the team, and then I made it really specific that I would add an assistant, and then I decided I was going to add a team member. Well, now we're adding another team member, so it's like things just kind of happen. I wasn't actively looking for them.
Yeah, and I think that's also key in you being a goal setter as well, because now you've got your team on board, and this will be something you'll help them implement. It's not just business planning, right? It's part of that process, but
yeah, well, that goes in with my personal goals
Yeah.
of time management.
yes,
You know, I would rather talk to people and be out there doing the fun stuff. You know, not always all the back end parts, which I have that down to a science at this point. But you know, it's finding what you love and then trying to really just hone in on that.
yeah,
And that's where I'm spending a lot of time right now. I'm really thinking deep about, you know, how do I see my life? Where do I want it? How do I want my day-to-day to be like? What would an ideal day look like?
yeah.
So I'm now balancing the mornings a little better, giving myself that personal time.
So that includes your exercising first thing in the morning?
Yeah,
or-
well, someone introduced me to a really good book, Vandana here, A Signature to the Miracle Morning.
Yep,
And
very
they
good
have
book.
that book for any realm of life.
Yep.
And the first time I read it twice. You know, I don't do that very often. But I read that book twice because when I first read it, I really wanted to implement things, and I did some things. But then I read it again because I was leaving out a few parts of it, like the exercise portion. You know? So now I'm actually doing like the 30-day challenge where I'm trying to check off the boxes of every single
That's
day.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing it on my own.
Yeah.
Not like,
Nobody else is
Nobody else,
holding
yeah.
you accountable or anything like that. I think once you start getting in the process of doing it, it becomes just routine. Just like when you get your kids ready for school, you got a time to drop them off at the bus or drop them off at school. It's just crazy how like the lunch gets made and your hair gets done and you're out the door. You know,
Right.
You don't realize that, but the beginning of school year, you're kind of like, oh my goodness, I got to get ready, I got to time this all out. And but yeah, I've had a morning routine for a few years now, and the one thing I notice is when I don't do it, my whole day is completely messed up, as though like I didn't have a cup of coffee.
Right.
You know what I mean? Your energy level is just lower. My thought process is just a little bit out there. I'm a little bit more scatterbrained than normal. But it also is that morning time for me is really the time for me. Like I value that moment, and sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's an hour. It just really depends on it, but I look forward to it in the morning now. And I get up now at 5 o'clock also. It used to be a struggle. It was, every day like, oh goodness, can I just hit the snooze button one more time?
Right.
But I get excited and get out there.
Yeah, I think when you have really big goals in life, you actually kind of want to get up and get going.
Yep.
Because you have something you're working towards.
Agree.
Like, you're kind of excited about it.
Yeah.
And it's a different mindset. It just is. I can see a difference in myself if I look back several years ago, how much that's changed.
Yeah.
And then when you start to measure the results in your life and what's happened, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and when you were mentioning like your goals, you start off with just one. I think for anybody who's watching or listening, that definitely is, because you think of it from a big, like if you looked at my goal sheets or the things that I do, it's huge. But I only started up with just waking up at 5 o'clock and brushing my teeth and having a cup of coffee, and then brushing my teeth, just to get that started, right? And you start small. And then, it ended up being multiple things in that morning that has made up my morning routine.
Right.
But, when you think of goals, sometimes they're so big that you're like, I don't even know how to start.
Yeah.
And it really is just putting it out there, writing it down, and then just taking that one step forward.
So another good book that goes with this, I know you've read this one, was The Compounding Effect.
Yes. Oh, love that book.
And Atomic Habits. Those
Yep.
are all great books that really play into all this. But it is all these little things, it layers, but then it multiplies.
Yeah.
So if you just be consistent in life, pick a few things that you're going to be consistent about and just do it.
Yeah.
And commit to it, and you'll see those results.
So totally random, but since you brought those two books up, I love to buy books for people. So, and because we're coming into like the end of the year, I had bought a stack of, I think, Compound Effect and Atomic Habits. So for those of you watching, if you'll DM or message Jessica, we're going to offer up, I have 3. So I have 3 of Compound Effects and I have 3 of Atomic Habits. So if they'll reach out to you, and then you'll have to give her your information, and then we'll ship off a book for you. Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, I know. When you brought those up, I'm like, they're sitting in my living room right now.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Somebody got this far.
Yes.
With this. Well, finishing off goals, goals are great and they should be big, and then you break them down to like 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, 1 year, and I usually do quarterly at that point. And then I do weekly goals, and I have daily goals too. But daily goals are simple. They need to be just a checklist item, basically. Yeah. And sometimes it's not just a checklist item and a daily goal. And I'm talking about this because spending time with someone is part of your goal.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of times people write down a task more and not actually like, I'm going to be present in the evening time with my kids and make sure that I spend a good solid hour being there.
Yeah.
I have to sometimes, I'm workaholic a little bit, and I have to, slow myself down a lot, so that I make sure I don't just let it go past me. That's intentional. I have to be very intentional.
Yeah.
Wasn't that your word for the year?
It was, but I think gratitude has been my word. I've noticed just in a lot of things for like different things. That's probably a whole different show, but yeah, it was intentional, and not to say that I'm not, but gratitude and being grateful has literally overcome my world this year. And so what I was going to say to you on the daily side of it, so you mentioned you follow the 5, right? I do 4, which my physical and health are the same. So I have physical, fitness, spiritual, and relational. And my goal is to score 4 points in each of those every single day. And so when I've done that, at least every day I know what relational, like you said, is either family, it could even be going to lunch with a coworker. And then spiritual is, I usually knock most of those out in the morning because I'll meditate and pray and all that other stuff. And then obviously with my work, and I try to get a workout in every day. Even if it's just walking around, in the morning or afternoon or not afternoon here in Las Vegas, but late evening time with the dog or something like that.
I was out right at 5.
Yeah.
And it was fine. The weather was okay.
Yeah. Right now in Vegas, what are we, 115 degrees?
Last a few more months,
Yeah.
And then we'll be over this.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk a lot more about this topic, but if you are interested in this topic and would love to chat with Shelly or I, just reach out, DM us. This is the kind of stuff we love to talk about anyway, so we picked an easy topic. And if you ever need anything, we're here for you. So, go ahead.
Yeah, and make sure that you connect with Jessica so that we can send out those books.
Yes. I hope somebody got to the end to find out.
Yeah.
So we can get a book. All right. Have a great day, and thank you for for your time.
See you next time.